Hey there. Thanks for joining me again. This is the second part of my bringing back the Chromecast audio experience. In the first part, you might remember that I got this little tiny AliExpress amplifier working. We managed to get sound out of it, and we managed to find a power supply that worked with it. Now, in this second part, I'm hoping to get the HDMI audio extractor powered, hook up the audio between that audio extractor and the amplifier, and then put the whole thing in a temporary enclosure. Maybe it won't be so pretty, but it'll be enough for me to get working with it in my workshop. So let's get started. It turns out I do actually have some jacks. Let's see if we have enough. We have one pair left, right? I have some banana plugs there too. These just need to get a nice connection here. Looks like I might not be able to avoid having a little bit of solder here. To be honest, I have never worked with this style of post before. I don't actually even remember where I got these things. I guess with enough slack on this wire, if I strip this back enough, I should be able to just wrap it around enough times. Inside the box, this is not going to move a lot. I can drop some solder on there maybe too if I find it's not secure enough. This set of wire strippers is not that great for very thin gauge wire like this. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's better just to get it to peel back the layer of the outer layer of insulation and then do the rest just with my fingertips. I'll just do this on all four. And we want quite a bit of slack here. We have one channel there. We have two channels, very delicately laid out here. We have these binding posts, which are pretty straightforward, just a little hat, screw terminal. I bought this roll of speaker wire ages ago. I don't know how many meters this is. It's pretty big. So we'll just cut two lengths of wire like this. This is much more suited for use with this stripper. This does a much better job here. I was playing around with these banana jacks a little bit more to try and understand what I'm supposed to do here. Turns out that hole, you're supposed to feed the wire through the bottom of the jack. And what will happen is the wire will come out through that hole. And you'll see a good chunk of wire comes through, not necessarily all of it, but a pretty good chunk. And what we can do is actually slide the ring over it and twist it to crimp it down pretty well. Now, screw this tightly on. We have a good, solid connection for both. Now, one of the issues I've had in the past with these speakers is that it's extremely difficult to fit this braided wire into here. Let's see if we still have that same problem. It has to be very tightly wound. Well, in this case, I think we're going to be able to do it. All right, there we go. Okay, so we have a speaker. All right, left channel, right channel. Let's carefully put these in. And here we go. Another test. Great. Okay. I don't have the remote control, so I can't adjust the volume. Let me see if I can connect to this thing by Bluetooth. I'm going to pair a new device here. Now, one of the challenges, I don't know what this thing is advertising as on Bluetooth. So I'll turn this on and we'll see which Bluetooth devices appear. Aha! So we have JXBT. Let's try that. That seems to be it. That's actually an impressive amount of volume for this thing here. Okay, that's great. So we have Bluetooth volume control.
Now watch what happens when I take the image generated by the ESP32.
That's perfect. So we have all the pieces together. We know that this will work. I've been testing this previously, but now what we need to do is figure out how to get the audio from here into here. Obviously there's an aux input on the front, but we actually don't want that. What we want is we want to be able to use the internal aux input. And that's going to take a little bit of figuring out. Let's turn this off and we'll explore a bit more. What I'm going to do here quickly is just beep out this aux port on the front because I have a suspicion it's available on one of these two on the back. They have two options for aux there. I guess you can use either one. We should have a left and a right channel then. Now, we did salvage this port from here. I wonder if we can use this to get an internal aux port. What I can do is I can repin this so that left and right are next to each other. I can solder a small header there. And I think I may, yeah, I think I might be able to reuse this. Is that the right pin spacing? That looks the same, it looks to be the same pin spacing. So let's find a header and let's get that on there. Okay, so I have a pin header here. I'm going to get this guy on here. No, I was wrong. That's the wrong pin spacing. Pin spacing here is too small for my headers. I think the intent was that you get one of these guys here plugged in. I don't think I have any of these. Bit of a pain, but I don't have anything I can easily solder there. Phew, okay, that was a lot for the first day. Got a decent amount of stuff done, but I gotta admit, I'm a little exhausted. I'm gonna come back to this the next day, but through the magic of editing, I think I can just do this. It's a few days later, and I'm coming back to it. I've been putting off the soldering part of this project because I am not that great at soldering. I've done it enough in my life, but it's an art that takes a lot more practice than I've put into it. I apologize in advance. It's not going to be that great, but hopefully I won't make too much of a mess of it. I checked my supplies for any sort of connector that I might be able to use for that header. I wasn't able to find anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of 3 jumper wires. Instead of trying to find a header or trying to fit one of these more standard sized, I guess these are the 0.1 inch pitch connectors, which are slightly too big for this. So I assume that this is maybe a 1mm socket, not entirely sure. What I'm going to do is just solder 3 of these wires in their place. Then we'll make use of this pre-existing salvaged headphone connector that we grabbed off that enclosure, which basically has everything we need for left and right. I'll use red and yellow as left and right, and black as the ground. All right, soldering iron's warmed up. I'm going to have to turn on my solder fume extractor, so this is unfortunately going to be a bit loud. Hopefully it doesn't mess too much with the audio. I finished soldering the jumper wires into that audio input header. Decided I was going to give this thing a test just to make sure that I knew exactly what the pinout was. I didn't realize this when I first pulled it out, but this is much shorter than a normal barrel jack. You can kind of see how much shorter it is if you compare it to the one that's actually on board here. So it's about 1mm shorter. I had assumed incorrectly that given that there were 3 wires, there would be left, right, and audio ground. But it turns out that this black wire is actually, or I think it's the black wire, but either black or red is a signal for when something is inserted. So basically the audio output is disabled unless you actually plug something into here. So when something makes positive contact inside, you can feel a little click, and then these red and black wires basically get shorted together. So unfortunately, this is not going to work for stereo input. Luckily, I do have an ancient audio connector that was sitting in my parts bin, salvaged from I'm not sure what. So at this point, I'm just going to try and solder this onto the ends of these connectors here. I'm going to make something of a permanently connected audio cable. We have left, right, and ground. It should be secure enough. Now I do want to make sure that I have a good connection before I move on here. We'll just beep those connections out. Okay, so the connections are good, but it looks like I didn't solder one of the wires to the board very well. So this yellow wire is not secure. So let's just top that up a little. I'll put one more bit of heat shrink on top just to make sure that these don't move around too much. Okay, so that gives us audio input. This is going to be good enough for something that lives inside of an enclosure. It's not going to be moving around a lot. I'll be able to pack this up tightly. I won't have to worry about this moving around all that much. And this will plug directly into the end of this guy here, which is going to turn into RCA cables on the other side. So this should give us a perfectly viable aux connection. And we can give that a quick test now. Okay, we've got everything hooked back up together. Now we can see that speakers are still working. Can you hear the Bluetooth chime? And now we'll try the aux input. So what I have is an HDMI cable. This HDMI cable here is running from a splitter that's plugged into an HDMI switch here. Now what we're going to do is try to get some input coming out of that. And we'll make sure that the setup works. So I'm going to fire up Chromecast with YouTube. And we'll connect. And let's see. Okay, we are not getting any output here. Did I hook this up correctly? Now it would help if I used the right cable. Okay, apparently that doesn't help. Okay, what's going on here? We have it set to aux. Speakers are working. We tested that earlier. This is the HDMI. Chromecast goes into there. Okay, so output B. Okay, output A and B.
Large part of what this
Hey, there we go.
It's about the modern internet and how I think it's caused a lot of folks to stop looking.
Let's pause that. Actually, we'll test the volume control. Volume works. Okay, pause. Great. So those are all the pieces and everything is working together. What's going to happen in the end is that I'm going to use an HDMI splitter so that the Chromecast will go into an HDMI splitter. The HDMI splitter will run into this audio extractor, and the other side is going to go into my HDMI switch, which then gets displayed on the VGA monitor there. So now all we need to do is finish off a power connector for this. So we have this extra 5 volts here, which we can make use of to power this guy. So we only will need one single power cable into the whole thing. And that's it. So I'm going to work on this last piece here, and then we're done. I have some of these DC barrel jack ends. They're kind of nice. They have a little bit of strain relief. So effectively, I'm just going to take 2 lengths of wire. First, I'm going to create a little pigtail end for this DC jack. And then once I have the pigtail end, we'll splice it onto this to give us a little more room because this is a little too short for my comfort right now. We're going to connect these to here, and this will be our 5 volts. I haven't yet decided if I'm brave enough to show how bad my soldering is on camera. So if I jumped over that, it's because it was just too embarrassing. Okay, so we're just going to confirm these most barrel jacks, obviously, center positive. So the short wire is positive, longer wire is negative. So I'm reaching for these again because they're so convenient, especially when I just have 2 wires to join together. I just want to have a nice solid connection. Don't want to have to worry about them. And we remember short one is positive. And if I have enough room, it's kind of nice if you grab them together like this, hook one over the other. If you still have enough room to feed this over top, then you get an even stronger connection. Sometimes with the braided wire, though, it's challenging to get this over top of them once you've bent them, but if you can, they are not going anywhere. I'm just going to try and flatten this as much as I can. See if I can get this over top. Just make sure this is over top of the gap between the two of them. There we go. And again, we'll just lightly hook them together and we'll slide this over. I can't remember when I discovered these. I think it's gotta be, I've had this case, I think, for 5-6 years. It's very nice for low voltage. I used them when I upgraded my thermostat from just a plain old dumb thermostat to an Ecobee. I had to splice the humidifier controls into it. Okay, so there we go. Over top of the connection, we have both of them in good spot. This time around, I'm just going to use hot air because my previous attempt at using fire started a small fire. Let's make sure this DC jack is okay. Power's on and center positive, 5 volts. Perfect. Okay, back to aux. Just as a curiosity, if I switch this off and back on, does it return to the aux mode or does it switch to something else? Let's see. I'm curious if it has a Yep. Okay, so it returns to aux mode. That's nice. Shouldn't matter how many times we turn it off and on. Great. And if I unpower it, perfect. It seems to have a memory for the input. Okay, so we give this guy 5 volts. The the barrel jack is not quite as secure as the previous one, but I think that should be okay. Again, this is going to be inside of a case. You can see it's not quite making the same contact. No, actually it's a little wobbly, but it's fine. This one was much shorter. I think that's probably why it was a little more secure. Let's give it the HDMI signal. Perfect. It's all working. This video has gone on for long enough, so I think what I'm going to do is just try to create a temporary enclosure inside a box, and then in a later video, we'll see if we can't create something a little prettier. I have been looking for an excuse to learn Fusion 360 or something like it. So what I'll do for now, we're just going to try and lay out everything inside this box and see if this can work as a temporary enclosure, just long enough for me to put something more permanent together. And here is the demo of the fully completed system.
Yes. When I'm in my workshop, I like to have YouTube playing in the background. Keeps me motivated and entertained, and just generally stops me from getting bored. There.
And that is the Chromecast audio system. Well, it doesn't look like much, but this is a fully self-enclosed Chromecast audio solution for my workshop. In a future video, I'm really hoping that I can improve this enclosure, maybe make it a little more robust, and I'll start talking about some of the problems I found while testing this thing out. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.